All right, welcome in. It is another special episode of What's Right with Nick Wright, the podcast and YouTube show where we go through the 50 best players of the last 50 years in the NBA. This is the first episode where we get into the top 20. So before we get to the top 20, we of course have to give you 21. And 21, I thought was going to be an incredibly difficult player to rank because of how we're doing this. It's like, oh my God, I'm going to have to rank him. And then what if he then goes on and wins the title this year? How much that would change things. However, that's no longer a problem because as we're recording this, we are just days removed from him squandering what was almost assuredly his last best chance to win a title. But that should not distract us from the fact he is still an all-time great. So let's get right into it. The 21st best player of the last 50 years. The point guard himself.
Number 21, Chris Paul.
So Chris Paul, as we sit here as of recording, has 4 first-team All-NBAs, 5 second-team All-NBAs, and 1 third-team All-NBA. He almost assuredly is going to add to that this season, but the All-NBA teams have not yet been announced. He has finished second place in MVP voting in 08 when he was a pup. 5 times he's finished in the top 5. 7 times he's finished in the top 6. And 10 times Chris Paul has finished in the top 10 in MVP voting. He's a 5-time assist champ, including winning an assist title at age 22 and winning an assist title at age 36. 14 years removed were his assist titles. He's won the Steals Championship 6 times, 9 times all defense. He also won Rookie of the Year, if you're interested in that. He's 3rd all-time in career assists and 6th all-time in career steals. The regular season resume is one of better than the 21st best player of all time. Let's be honest here. The regular season resume would say it's probably the 2nd greatest point guard ever. The regular season resume would be Magic 1, Chris Paul 2, depending on what you want to do with Oscar Robertson. But spoiler alert, I have 3 point guards plus Oscar. Oscar's too old for the list, ahead of Chris Paul. Because Magic's ahead of him, Steph's ahead of him, Isaiah's ahead of him. So why? It's because the postseason resume, and this was true before this season ended in the most inglorious fashion imaginable, is spotty. Now, spotty doesn't mean all bad. A guy like Harden's postseason resume is almost entirely bad. Chris's postseason resume is not entirely bad. So let's go through the plus and the minus of it, okay? He is 5th all-time in playoff assists. His first career playoff game, he was 35-10, followed by a 32-17, followed by a 24-11-15 to close out a series in 2008, the year he almost won MVP. That year in 08, he took the defending champion Spurs to 7 games in round 2. But that was another series where they had control of it and then lost the final couple games. That ain't great. And however, you look at it, you're like, okay, but his 2nd and 3rd best players were David West and Peja Stojakovic. He averaged 24-7 for the series. He was 22 years old, and it looked like only great things were ahead for Chris in the postseason. It's not quite how it worked out. And in fact, you don't have another super noteworthy postseason event until 2014. So we go from 08 to 14 without any super great postseason moment for Chris. 2014 postseason, 22 points, 14 assists in a Game 7 against the Warriors. It's actually, as of recording, which is we're recording right before the Western Conference Finals get going, it's the last team to beat the Warriors in the playoffs, aside from in the finals. So he did that in Game 7 against the Warriors in 2014. He averaged 23-12 in round 2 against Oklahoma City, but they lose. They down 2-1 to the defending champ Spurs the next year. He has 25-10, including a Game 7 buzzer beater. It's like, okay. So he had the great playoff moment in 08, then a long gap without it. Then 2014, he beats the young upstart Warriors. He loses a brutal series to OKC, but come on, it's OKC, and they have Durant, they have Russ still at the time. You're not going to kill him for it. The very next year, he's in a Game 7. He hits the buzzer beater. If you remember it, he kind of got bumped, banked it off the glass to win a Game 7. But then his, at the time, single worst playoff moment immediately followed. They're up 3-1 against the Rockets. They lose all 3 games, and it's awful. It's just truly, truly awful. And the previous year, when I said the 2014 season, we're not going to kill him for it, we're not going to kill him for it, but he had those back-to-back terrible turnovers. So 2014, he has the terrible turnovers in the final 15 seconds against Russ, and they lose a critical game to OKC. They lose the series. But it's like, were the Clippers really the better team, or was that KD and Russ? Okay, the next year, they are better than the Rockets. They're up 3-1, and they blow it. In his defense, the most notorious game of that series was the Game 6 meltdown. He did have 31 and 11, but he's still attached to the loss. 2018 is supposed to be his moment. He has 41, 7, and 10 to eliminate the Jazz, to advance for the first time in his career, forget the finals, the Western Conference Finals. And they are beating an all-time great Warriors team. And then he hurts his hamstring in Game 5, and the team collapses without him. It's like, okay, is he ever going to have another chance as good as this? In 2020, he's on a Thunder team that's supposed to be rebuilding. They lose in round 1 to Houston by 2 in Game 7. He did have 19, 11, and 12. Houston wins. Okay, that's not really on him. I'm sorry, that was 2020. If I didn't say that right, that was the bubble year. But then last year, the Chris Paul resurgence, if you will. He's on Phoenix, this Phoenix team that had never sniffed the playoffs before he gets there. He goes there. He averages 21 and 10 to sweep Nikola Jokic out of the playoffs in round 2 to get to his second career Western Conference Finals. And he had 37 and 7 to clinch that series. Then in the conference finals, he averages 24 and 9 against the Clippers and to clinch that series to get to his first career finals. 41 and 8, one of the single greatest playoff games of his life to get to the finals. In his first career finals game, he's 32 and 9. But the Suns are up 2-0, and then they lose 4 straight. And then this year, what did we see? First game of the playoffs, 30 and 10 against the Pelicans. To eliminate the Pelicans, 33 and 8, going an NBA all-time playoff record, 14 of 14 from the field. Gets to the Mavs series. Unbelievable game 1, unbelievable game 2, and then just a total no-show. Awful, the final 5 games. So what do? Chris Paul's regular season resume far outshines Isaiah Thomas, is neck and neck, if not, as far as true point guard play, better than Steph Curry. And he does have some great postseason moments, but repeatedly, in the biggest spots, the point guard does not play his biggest ball. So it's hard for me to have him higher than right outside the top 20. And if I'm being honest, I think this is going to end up being his last best shot. Last year, up 2-0 in the finals. This year, a 64-win team, up 2-0 on a Mavs team no one except for me picked to go anywhere. They only have one All-Star in Luka. And it wasn't just on him, but he was not good the final 5 games of that series. So I don't want to spend this time knocking him. He's the 21st greatest player ever. But why is he not higher? That's why he's not higher. We've got a couple callers that want to chime in on Chris Paul. Let's hear from him.
What up, Nick? Look at this new audience. Got to make sure I'm crispy up here. Top 50 of the last 50, huh? Now, CP3 is my homie, but he was my 3rd favorite Clipper. I was a Blake guy, and then DeAndre just was flying through the sky and Lob City hits. And you know who Chris Paul was? He was the adult in the room. Chris Paul's the one that leveled everything out. Yeah, we didn't realize our full potential, but without Chris Paul, I don't think we even sniffed that. So I got respect for CP3, who's still out here cooking, looking better than ever. That's what happens when you become a vegan. Hey, man, have me on the podcast for real instead of these little clips. We'll chop it up 2 chains. All right, boy.
Hey, Nick, how you doing? Melissa Rowland here, national NBA reporter for Fox Sports. Great list, by the way, but I have a question for you. Chris Paul, I think we can agree he's an incredible passer, an incredible playmaker, an incredible defender. Heck, I'd even say he's one of the top 5 NBA point guards of all time. So my question for you is the reason why he's not higher on your list because he never won a championship? If he had won a title, would you have given him a little bit of a higher nod?
Listen, to answer her question, absolutely unequivocally yes. And in fact, the guy who you're about to hear is number 20, who's going to be my far and away most controversial inclusion. He would be higher than him. He also, I don't want to give the list away, but I haven't mentioned Charles Barkley. I haven't mentioned Karl Malone. those are best players without a ring, Chris Paul would be ahead of them. But instead, those are players also without a ring who won a league MVP. He did not. Like if he had won a title last year or this year, he would have at least had an argument of him versus Isaiah Thomas. But he didn't, so he doesn't. And to Marcellus's point, those Clippers teams didn't lose a lot of series where they had clearly the best team. You lose to the Warriors, you lose to the Thunder, but they were in position where they could have won those series. And Chris, this is why it's hard for little guys to dominate the NBA playoffs. He got dinged at the wrong time. He turned the ball over at the wrong time. He's an all-time great player. And analytics say he is the second greatest point guard ever. But he needed to have one start-to-finish unimpeachable postseason. He didn't. That's why he's just outside the top 20. Number 20 is going to be the single most controversial inclusion. Folks will say he does not even belong on the list. I feel like I might have him too low. We'll do that next. All right, welcome back in What's Right with Nick Wright podcast, as we are now officially to the top 20 of the 50 best players of the last 50 years. And a little context here. The NBA released its 50 greatest players ever at its 50-year anniversary. And there was one incredibly controversial inclusion. They included Shaquille O'Neal. Now, Shaq did not have the resume. He'd been in the league a half decade, exactly a half decade. He did not have the resume to be included. But it was so clear he was changing the game. It was so clear how dominant he was. He was already, from almost the moment he walked into the league, an MVP candidate. They said this list is going to look dumb in 2 years' time if we don't have Shaq on it. So I'm following their lead. And the 20th greatest player of the last 50 years. And what's going to look dumb about this is not including him. What's going to look dumb about this is not having him higher.
Number 20, Luka Dončić.
Now, let me say this. We are recording this before the Western Conference Finals begin. So by the time you guys hear this, he maybe will have carried a Mavs team to the finals, which would be the most impressive individual effort in a postseason since LeBron in 07 with no All-Stars carried that Cavs team to the finals. But even if he doesn't get to the finals, this is not going to be debatable. Here's where we're at with Luka. He's two-time first-team All-NBA, but that might be three-time first-team All-NBA by the time you see this. Once the All-NBA teams are released, he's either going to be first or second team this year. As a 19-year-old rookie, he averaged 21, 8, and 6. The 3 years since his rookie season, he's averaging 28, 9, and 9. For his career, he's 26, 9, and 8. His MVP finishes are 4th place, 5th place, 6th place, not in that order. His 3 years, his second, third, and fourth year in the league. But where Luka truly distinguishes himself is what he's done in the postseason, which is quite simply be one of the greatest postseason performers we have ever seen already. The headlines. He is second all-time in playoff points per game behind only Michael Jordan. He is 12th all-time at present, might move up higher, in playoff assists per game, tied with Chris Paul. He is third all-time in playoff three-point shooting percentage behind only Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, as far as guys that take at least 7 a game, shooting over 38% or over 37%. Dame Lillard's the only other person on that list. It's those 4 guys. So 3 of the greatest shooters we've ever seen. Wait, and Luka. The context of it, he has played, as of recording, 4 career playoff series. 2 came against the Clippers, years the Clippers were favored to win the title, where Kawhi and Paul George were healthy for both series, the 2 best wing defenders in basketball. That's who he had to deal with his first 2 career series. His third playoff series, he missed the first 3 games of because he was injured. Come into it, and Rudy Gobert's there. He's won 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards. His 4th career series, he's up against a 64-win juggernaut in the Phoenix Suns with Chris Paul, a 9-time All-Defense guy, Mikal Bridges, allegedly one of the best wing defenders in the league. So how has he done? Well, through those 4 series, he is averaging for his playoff career 33, 9, and 9. No other player in playoff history averages 36 and 6. He averages 33, 9, and 9. He's played 23 career playoff games. 6 of them he's gone for 40 plus. That's the 19th most 40-point playoff games in NBA history already. And he's done all of this with 0 all-star teammates ever. So let's go through year by year for Luka. 2020 against the Clippers, his first career playoff game ever. He scores the most points for anyone in NBA history making their playoff debut. He has 42 points, 7 rebounds, 9 assists, 3 steals. Game 4 of that series, down 2-1, a critical spot. He has 43 points, 17 rebounds, 13 assists, and hits a buzzer-beating 3 to win the game. In the elimination game of that series, he has 38, 9, and 9. He also, by the way, is the all-time record holder by a mile for most points per game in NBA history in elimination games. For that series, he averaged 31, 10, and 9. One game ruined his averages because he only scored like 13 points because Marcus Morris was so sick of Luka Dončić hitting him in the head that he stomped on Luka's ankle after the play, and he had to miss most of the game. The very next year, they are playing the Clippers again. Game 1, 31, 10, and 11. Game 2, 39, 7, and 7. They win them both. Game 3, with a chance to go up 3-0 and shock the world. They didn't. Was it Luka's fault? Oh, I don't know. He had 44, 9, and 9. Game 5, series tied 2 games apiece. He has 42, 8, and 14. And then in Game 7, a game they lose. Oh, you're up 2-0. You lost. What does that say about you? Well, I don't know. In Game 7, again with Kawhi or Paul George guarding him the whole game, he had 46 points, 7 rebounds, 14 assists. For the series, he averaged 36, 8, and 10. And then this year, round 2 against the 64-win defending Western Conference champion Phoenix Suns. Game 1, 45, 12, and 8. Game 2, 35 points on 22 shots. Facing elimination in Game 6, 33, 11, and 8. They win by 27. And then Game 7 in Phoenix, he scored 27 in the first half. The Suns scored 27 in the first half. He had 35, 10, and 4, and it killed his playoff averages because he didn't have to play in the fourth quarter. Luka Dončić is already one of the greatest playoff performers ever, and I'm recording this before they even play in the Western Conference Finals, might made the finals by the time you hear this. No matter what happens in the series against the Warriors, the only thing that could happen is that I have him too low. Luka Dončić is the 20th greatest player of the last 50 years at a minimum. We now have a caller that, if it is who I think it is, I know is going to take massive issue with this. Let me hear.
Nick, you just couldn't wait, could you? You just could not wait. It is the year 2022. It is only the year 2022. And let me make sure I'm looking at this shit right. Luka Dončić is already a better player than Kevin Garnett, David Robinson. I'm just pointing out Kawhi. I'm just pointing out the egregious ones. Come on, man. Wait a little while. It's too soon. It's too soon. And too wrong.
It's Bo. I love you. It's not too soon. It's not too wrong. Hey, Kevin Garnett, as much as I adore him, put up his 5 best playoff games ever. Luka's already got 5 better. Go game for game. KG's best game ever is a 32 and 21 in a Game 7 of a Western Conference semifinals. Luka, I told you, did 44, 9, and 9 facing elimination. He had a Game 7 where he scored 46. David Robinson, who, again, I adore. He had 36 and 16 is the best playoff game he ever had. 36 and 16. Luka did better than that in his first playoff game ever. The KG, God love him. KG, what was the story on him? Can't get out of the first round, can't get out of the first round, can't get out of the first round until he got legitimate teammates. Luka's never had another all-star on his team. He's staring at a conference finals as I record this, maybe an NBA finals by the time you hear it. It was not wrong to put Shaquille O'Neal on the 50 greatest players in NBA history list when it came out. It is absolutely not wrong to put Luka Dončić on the 50 greatest players of the last 50 years, nor is it wrong to have him in the top 20. He is never had a bad playoff game. After his rookie year, he's been first team or second team. We'll see how he finishes this year if he's first or second team. But likely first team All-NBA this year, which would mean after his rookie year, he has finished top six MVP voting every year, first team All-NBA every year, averaged 30-plus in the playoffs every year. Again, no one has ever averaged in the postseason 30 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists. Luka averages 33 points, 9 rebounds, 9 assists. Every Luka Dončić playoff moment, it's either the only other guy to do it is Jordan, the only guy ever to do it is LeBron, the only guy ever to do it is Wilt. He is going to go down as one of the 10 greatest players ever. It is not too far to say he's already one of the 20 greatest players of the last 50 years. Number 19 is a player that Luka already has a better regular season resume than. But number 19 made his money in the postseason. We wrap up today's episode with him next. All right, welcome back in. What's Right, Nick Wright podcast special episode as we count down the 50 greatest players of the last 50 years. Number 20 was Luka Dončić. It's going to be wildly controversial. Number 19 will not be. Number 19 is a guy everyone respects, everyone loves, and I think everyone has right about in this range.
Number 19, Dwyane Wade.
D-Wade's regular season resume is good, but not elite. His regular season resume, 2-time first-team All-NBA, 3-time second-team All-NBA, 3-time third-team All-NBA. He finished top 5 MVP voting twice, but never won it. He won 1 scoring title. He was 3-time All-Defense. That's about the end of the regular season resume. So how could he be this high? Because D-Wade made his money at money time until his body gave out on him. He was a dominant playoff performer from day one. He went to 5 NBA finals, he won 3 titles, and he was the best player on one of those title teams, winning finals MVP. He was the second best player, obviously, on the other 4 finalists, winning 2 more rings. 2005, averages. He comes into the league 03-04. By 05, his second year in the league. In D-Wade's defense, LeBron had not yet made the playoffs, same draft class. D-Wade 2005, final 3 games of round 2, averages 35, 8, and 8. He has a 48 and 6 and a 36 and 7 in games 2 and 3 of the conference finals in his second year in the league against the defending champion Detroit Pistons. Now, it's not enough. They end up losing that series. Detroit goes on to the finals, obviously. But he was immediately awesome. Again, year 2, final 3 games of round 2, averages 35, 8, and 8. And then in games 2 and 3 of a series against Detroit that they would go up 2-1 on the defending champion Pistons, he gives you 40 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, and then 36 points and 7 rebounds. Game 3, Detroit would go on to win. But then the next year is where the D-Wade legend really grows. Down 0-2 to Dallas in the NBA Finals. This is what he does in the final 4 games. Down 0-2, he has a 42 and 13. Down 2-1, he has a 36 and 6. Series tied 2 games apiece. He has a 43 and 4. And then up 3-2. He has 36 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, 4 steals, 3 blocks to win the title. One of the greatest finals performances by anyone ever. In fact, I would argue, that the only finals performances better than what D-Wade did in 06 were authored by Michael Jordan, LeBron James, and Giannis Antetokounmpo. Jordan had a couple that were better than this. LeBron's had a couple that were better than this. Giannis had last year's, and then it's D-Wade. And by the way, Game 5 series tied 2 games apiece, down 1, 2 seconds left in overtime. D-Wade gets fouled, hits both free throws. That was his 3rd year in the league. He's a finals MVP and with an all-time great finals performance. Then, bit of a dry spell. 09, he has 41 and 5 in a game 6 to stave off elimination against Atlanta. 2010, he faces the Big 3 in Boston in round 1. Averages 33-6-7, including facing elimination, has a 46-5-5, but the big three beat him. Then 2011, LeBron comes to town. That 2011 postseason, though, Dwyane Wade was better than LeBron James. In 2011, he averaged 37-5 to knock Boston out of the playoffs. And then in the finals, he averaged 27-7-5, was the best player on the Heat by far. LeBron was not with it that series. We all know the story there. In Game 2, which Game 2, the whole NBA history is different. If the Heat are able to hold on to that lead in Game 2, he had 36 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists. They lose that series. But if the Heat had managed to win that series, D-Wade would have been Finals MVP on a team with LeBron. 2012, when the Heat finally do get their first ring, he had a 41-10 to close out the frisky Pacers in 2012. And in those finals, he had averaged 23-6-5. Now he has 2 rings. 2013, monster Game 4 against the Spurs. They're down 2-1 or the Heat, and D-Wade has 32 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 6 steals to even the series, 2 games apiece before obviously the Ray Allen shot in Game 6 and the LeBron masterpiece in Game 7. In that LeBron masterpiece, by the way, though, famously, LeBron had 37-12. Chris Bosh had 0. That game came down to the final minutes. D-Wade had 23-10 in that game and averaged 24-5 for the series. Unfortunately for D-Wade, he had only had one more great postseason moment. 2014, his knees were shot. He was no good. He was a big reason why the Heat lost. And 2016, I will give him credit, a resurgent Dwyane Wade playing for Miami, Eastern Conference semifinals, 2016. The Cavs are waiting. The Cavs with LeBron are waiting in the Eastern Conference Finals. And D-Wade is playing Toronto. It goes 7 games. He averages 26 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, but they lose in 7. It would have been unbelievable to see that team take on LeBron and the Cavs. I don't think they would have had a shot, but it would have been good theater. So D-Wade's playoff flame didn't burn as long as you would like, but it burned so incandescently hot. One of the greatest finals performances ever. Another excellent finals performance and a loss because LeBron wasn't good enough in 2011. A great wingman performance in 2012 and 2013. All of that combined with the fact that he is, at least in my estimation, if we're ranking 2 guards of the last 50 years, it goes Michael, Kobe, Wade. He was always, and I didn't even mention one of the more underrated defenders at his position. Even though he never won an MVP, I feel very comfortable with him exactly where he is. The 19th best player of the last 50 years, one Dwyane Wade. We have a caller that wants to ask a question about D-Wade.
What's up, Nick? Yaron from Fox Sports. So with Dwyane Wade, he is awesome. I cannot make any argument against him. But looking over his career resume, one thing that did stand out was the fact that he only had 2 first-team All-NBA nods and just 2 top 5 MVP finishes. So my question for you is, did you take that into account? And does that say something about how good Dwyane Wade actually was at his best? Thanks.
Absolutely, I took it into account. If D-Wade had won a league MVP and was like 6-time first-team All-NBA, then he'd be higher on this list. But because his regular season resume is a guy who probably should be in the 35 to 45 range. His postseason resume is a guy that should be in probably the 8 to 14 range. You put them together, you come in at 19th. DeMonte's been sitting here listening to me rant about these players. He also has a D-Wade question. Go ahead.
Yeah, by putting Wade this high, you're kind of saying something about LeBron. And that's it. I mean, it just sounds like he won his first 2 titles because he had a top 20 player on his team. And, you know, if you got 2 top 20 guys all time on your team, it kind of feels like an underachievement to only win 2 titles.
Well, that would be correct if for the 4 years they were together, they had 2 top 20 all-time guys, but they didn't. Because 2011, in the finals, LeBron didn't play like a top 200 all-time guy. That's one title they didn't win. 2014, the entire playoff series, D-Wade was like 15 points per game. He wasn't a top 20 player in the league, much less all time. The 2 years where they both were, LeBron was at his apex and D-Wade was at his near apex, They won both titles. So I understand the point, but the problem for D Wade is after the 2013 season, his knees were shot. The problem for LeBron is 2011, he spit the bit, or else they'd have won that title. D Wade was good enough. But a huge part of D Wade's legacy comes years before LeBron joins the team. What he did that 06 postseason will never be forgotten. It's one of the greatest finals performances ever. It helped Shaq solidify himself post-Kobe. And so I'm very comfortable with it. Dwyane Wade, the 19th best player of the last 50 years. He has 3 rings. We start off next week's list with a couple of guys with no rings. So how'd they get here? We'll discuss that next week. It is What's Right with Nick Wright, special episode, 50 greatest players in the last 50 years. Hey, thanks for watching. Smash or just lightly tap that subscribe button. It all works the same. To get more from the show, and make sure you click. Why don't you want to mash the bell too, guys? Or just, lightly tap the bell to get notified every time new content drops. Check out full episodes of What's Right wherever you get your podcasts, or just hit the link in the description below.